Let's start looking at this long sentence by breaking the syllables into some chunks of vocabulary. So, Drakardaso is a place that Milarepa meditates. Gom is to meditate. Gomdudro is to go to meditate. And here's the verbal auxiliary must. Must go to meditate. And here's the verb to think, or sometimes in English we say to wonder, or even in this case maybe to decide. So here's the subject. I decided to go to meditate at Drakardaso, and at that time, Yubetse, from my aunt, auntie, 3 bushels, and this is grain or barley in 3 bushels. And here we have chudor, which is meat, which is mixed with butter and fat. So, and here's sok, which is the particle we've seen a number of times, which means etc. or such as. So, my aunt, or I carried from my aunt, 3 bushels of barley from my aunt, and some meat mixed with butter and fat. And here's the continuative. And then this with the pluralizing particle. And let's go here now to the yinbei as a place to stop, to break up this longer phrase. So these are payment from payment of having sold. Song is the past tense of to sell. Payment for having sold nephew's, Sabo is nephew's fields. Xing is his Milarepa's fields. So these are the payment for having sold Milarepa's fields. And so, now we're at this agentive case. And so, bring them, or take them, and now we have 2 long phrases. So, here's the verb to see, and here's the negation. So, not seen by my eyes, and here we have not heard by my ears, joined by a 6th case marker to a region. And here we go all the way to the end of this phrase to see the imperative marker ki and the a verbal auxiliary that means something like please and the verb go. So here's a command, and now we're starting to understand that someone is probably speaking. And if we look to the end here of this phrase, we do see a non-honorific to speak, so it can't be Milarepa speaking. It's got to be his aunt in this context. And based on what we've read up here, we have nephew being referred to, so his aunt calls Milarepa nephew. And we can then guess that right here is where the beginning of this quote starts. So it's Milarepa's aunt saying that these items that she's given him are the payment for having sold the fields to her. So she wants him to take, she's saying, take them and going all the way down to the bottom, go to a place where my eyes can't see you and my ears can't hear you, the aunt says. And she continues, saying Daemin, otherwise, all the villagers in the third case, all the villagers, actually this ser could be what all the villagers are saying. All the villagers are saying, there is no doubt, tetso mindu, tetso means doubt, so there's no doubt that Saborang, nephew, you yourself, su mi su, whether you'll be killed or not killed. So in English, how would you render that? It could be something like, all the villagers are saying there's no doubt that they might kill you, nephew. In Tibetan, it's su mi su la tetso mindu. And then this ser, I think it would depend on what comes after this right here in the text. You'd have to see in the context if there's another verb to say that is the end of the ant's quote, or if this ser refers to all the villagers. And so you have to see in a larger context how this entire passage fits into the text. This phrase starts with Milarepa thinking. So he says, Nge sambala, I thought. In English you would say, I thought, or we could say, as for my thoughts. Here then in the next phrase we have a yin at the end, so and another la. So as for the method or technique of obtaining Buddhahood, patience is taught supremely, or is the supreme teaching. And then de gombe den, the support for meditating on that, or the support for cultivating, the basis for cultivating that, maybe we would say, is anti. Then this phrase right here is meeting with the Holy Dharma also is the kindness of uncle and aunt. So in other words, you could put that into English how you like, but in other words, he's grateful to his aunt and uncle for introducing him to the Holy Dharma through their actions. So it's because it's a kindness that they've given him to introduce him to the Holy Dharma. And then he says, this phrase ending with the third case, he says, because of great, and shindu also means really or great, so this is two expressions of gratitude, kajin. In return for their kindness, he says that, go down to the verb, that he will establish always, dakdu, the aspiration for their obtaining Buddhahood in the future, chima. Then Milarepa says, then, in the morning, Nangbar, I took the things which were payment for my fields, so the things we heard about in the last couple of examples that he got from his aunt, and mi sukyang matsorwar. Matsor is a verb that means to feel or to sense, and sukyang is no one at all, or anyone, but in this case it's negated, so people, no people at all sensing, without anyone sensing it, or we would say in English, without anyone knowing. Drakar jasor chin. I went to, that's a case marker, Drakar jaso. And daso na, so at that place, this is the case marker, daso na, at Drakar jaso. This phrase we can look, Pukba is a cave, this is a pleasant cave. And Rangchik Duba, so there was a pleasant cave. At a pleasant cave that was there, we could say, I meditated and then stayed there. Here we can break this first part off, so this is to be dependent on. So depending on nettles alone, rang means only or alone. I did practice, or I practiced and stayed there. So in English we might say I stayed there practicing, or I stayed there doing my practice depending on nettles alone or only. And lo chik tsam, about 1 year. So tsam means about. If you said lo chik songwa, that means 1 year passed. If you say lo chik tsam songwa, then it's about a year passed. And coming to the verb here, tiriri is a sound, so the voices of many people, the tiriri voices of many people emerged. So in English you might say the clamor of many people's voices. And this chungwa just, we've seen that many times, means to come about or to happen or to occur. In English in this case you might want to say that he just heard them. And then here this breaks, and he looked, comma, he looked, and therefore, having looked, what did he see? He saw kirawa, hunters. Ga means some, so some hunters. Sha mangbo kier, carrying a lot of meat. Pukbe gakdu lepchungwa. It occurred that they arrived at the door, the opening of my cave. And this, as you'll know when you get to the translation section, is a spelling mistake in the text. This should be lep. So lepchung, a bunch of hunters, several hunters, carrying a lot of meat, arrived at the door to my cave. Nga tongwa tong dreju ser. Okay. They saw me. Nga tongwa. So you might be happy to have a la here to know that what they saw, it's not me seeing, but they saw me. And Jeju ser, so they said, it's a ghost. And Ngamanam, the ones in front, the people in front, Drosong, ran away. Once, Lenchik, Senmo, at night, one man emerged. One man emerged, Rene, hoping. Re is a verb that means to hope. So he emerged hoping that, and what did he hope? He hoped that I have food and wealth, or food resources, food or belongings. And he Pukpa Nang Kun, so everywhere inside the cave, all over the inside of my cave, Yinki Dubala, he wandered all over inside of my cave. So this is the verbal construction that's very common in colloquial Tibetan. So Milarepa is speaking. He says, Yinki Dubala, the person wandered all over my cave, and I guchik shore. Shore is a verb that means to escape or slip away. Gut is a laughter. So you could say, I burst out laughing, or a laugh escaped me, or you could just say, I laughed. And Milarepa says, Nge Ninmo Manyebe Sa Dene. So during the day, Manyebe saw this place, Sa De, that place in which I can find nothing during the day. Nye is to find. From that place, you at night, Enye, what could you find? Or then he says, look, dushik, so here's the imperative to look and see, what can you find? So enye is also a colloquial way of asking a question. You put this a before the verb. So from this place where during the day I can find nothing, you look and see what you can find at night. And here is the end of the quote. So this is, he said. So here's the beginning of the quote. So this is Milarepa speaking to the hunter who's invaded his cave. And then he, Korang, Milarepa returns to speaking to the reader. He says, Korang, he, that hunter, also good Xing, he laughed. He also laughed, and Tun Songo, and he left.